All right, welcome back to another edition of Inside the Headset. We are excited tonight because we got some special guests with us. Excited, number one, because this is our first video podcast, so you guys get to see us finally. And number two, we got two very special guests in Coach Brady Walz and Rowdy Harper from Run the Power with us tonight. How you guys doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. We're happy to be here. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and do this first, so our guys can kind of our listeners can understand who you guys are and what you guys are doing. Since I referenced Run the Power there, but in case you guys aren't familiar, Run the Power is another podcast that's out there. You guys just started this thing a couple months ago, and so I'll kick it over to Rowdy. Rowdy, why don't you kind of give us a little bit of your background, and then we'll kind of go to Brady, and then we'll talk about Run the Power.
Sure. So, like you said, Rowdy Harper, I coach now at Broken Arrow High School, but I came up through Broken Arrow as well. That's where I went to school, and then my dad was a head football coach now and was an offensive line coach my whole life. So I grew up with the dad as a football coach, and we rolled through it, learned a lot through that, went to high school at Broken Arrow, like I said, in Oklahoma, then the University of Houston, played there for 5 years, redshirted my first year, then started the next 4, got to play with a bunch of really good guys. Came out, got the unbelievable chance to come coach at my alma mater and with a coach that coached me. And then now we decided, me and Walz, he's my offensive coordinator at Broken Arrow. He went off to Iowa. Now he's having a great time in Iowa, but was at Broken Arrow. So that's kind of how we met. And then I've seen all these coaches. They started doing a bunch of blogs and different stuff like that. And I was never really good with writing, but I was like, hey, I'll jump into this. I get really bored in the off season, start kind of losing my mind a little bit. So I'll jump into this. Started making a few articles. Walz was like, hey, that's awesome. I'm going to make some too. So we had 2 different websites. And then my aunt was like, hey, why don't you start a podcast? And I was like, it's not that easy. You can't just start a podcast. And then
I guess it is that easy.
It is that easy. I tell everybody, it's that easy. You just start a podcast. And so I got on it, and I was like, who's the first person I want to talk ball with? Brady. All right, let's go with Brady. And so I call him up. We get done. We'd probably talk 2 hours or whatever it was that first time. And then he's texting me immediately. We hang up the phone. He's texting me immediately. This is awesome. We need to do this all the time. And I was like, heck yes, it is. This is the most fun in the off season. So he's like, well, let's just do it together. I was like, perfect. So we started rolling with that a little bit. I chipped in a little bit of money, to have some storage on SoundCloud, but that's about it. And then we said, hey, we've got these 2 different blogs or whatever. Let's move it into one. Brady can kind of tell you about the name. It was his, brainchild of a name that he's used for a long time now. But that's kind of how we started getting rolling. We're 4 months into it now. I think we just broke the 50,000 downloads. So we're really excited about that. And we've had some really cool guests. And that's what we've said. We try to make it like our favorite part in an off season is getting to sit around the office and just talk ball with coaches, have college coaches come in, have our own staff in, and just get to talk football. And so that was kind of our goal when we get to talk to these guys, and puts us in front of some big-time guys that we wouldn't normally get to talk to. They wouldn't normally take the time to talk, but we can get with Charles Bentley, we can get DePress Taylor, some of those guys that never could imagine you could talk to. But as soon as you say, hey, it's on a podcast, there's some guys that are all for it. Even with some of the big-time high school coaches, they don't necessarily care to talk a whole lot, but as soon as you say, hey, let's go talk about you, they're all for it. So gotten in front of a lot of people that we wouldn't normally.
Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of where we started too. I mean, we were back in September, I think, when we kind of kicked this thing off, and same type of scenario, right? Just sitting around talking ball. And for us, Mario and I, like, it was September, October, November. It was during the season, and these guys kind of got rolling, and I tried to jump into it as soon as I could. And it's just, like you said, you're talking ball, and you're talking to guys that have really good ideas. And I think for us, it was unique just with the relationship we have with the AFCA and being able to get guys that are on the board, and those guys are always willing to talk with us. And, I think we did David Cutcliffe the other day, and he's just like full of knowledge. Like we got off the phone with him, and we were joking, like, that dude has forgotten more football. And
that was a good one.
Yeah. I'm like, this is unbelievable. So I think it kind of happened the same way for us. But Brady, why don't you go ahead and give us your background, and then let's talk about the name, and then we can talk about like throwing the quick game or something. That's what you guys talk about all the time, right?
Yeah, I was thinking, more, quick game and key screens, all that good stuff.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that was where it was. Run the RPO is what we really went with, and somebody already had it. Um, we went with run the power. I guess that was one of the things I'd kind of said when I got into coaching offensive line. Later on in my career, to me, it was just a mindset with our guys. So it was just kind of a deal I'd done on Twitter, #RTP. I know I'd mentioned Blake Smith a little bit before. Blake had kind of made some of my first T-shirts with the offensive line group, so it just kind of became a mantra for our guys. I mean, they were like, you know what, Coach, we don't know what to call. Screw it, run the power. It's kind of one of those things that they just believed in and they got to. And I think it kind of brought me back to that when Harper had this idea, and it's like, hey, should we do a podcast? You know what, screw it, run the power. Let's do it. So to me, it was kind of one of those things. It was a mentality for us, and obviously Coach Harper had never run the power before because he played at Houston. So I kind of felt like I had a little bit of a part in his coaching growth because I taught him a little bit of how to run the power. So to me, it kind of just spoke a little bit about both of us, and plus it's just a cool name. And Harper came up with, the logo, Strong Power. So that was kind of the name. As far as me, I mean, we could spend an hour sitting here talking about all the places I've been. I've kind of bounced around everywhere. But I did kind of get my real start in football, I think, down in Oklahoma, coaching at Jenks with Alan Trimble and with Dub Maddox. And then I had the opportunity to go with Dave Alexander to Broken Arrow, and that's kind of where I got to be an offensive coordinator, and that's where I ultimately met Coach Harper. But for me, my calling on this whole thing is, A, getting to know a lot more coaches, and then B, being able to help a lot of coaches. I mean, to me, if I'm not being a mentor or paying it forward with a lot of these younger coaches, I'm not doing my job. So that's the fun part for me, working with kids and working with younger coaches.
Well, yeah, that's definitely, I think, why we were interested to talk with you guys, just because I think you mentioned it right there at the end. That's kind of our mission too, as the AFCA, right? Like, we're trying to help educate guys, give guys opportunities that they wouldn't normally have. And so we're excited to have you guys on. And the one thing I wanted to go back to, Rowdy. So you talked about playing at Houston, right? 4 years there, 52 consecutive games. You also played 4 different positions, right?
Right. Yes.
Okay. So
in the backup center, I never got to play it. We had a good. He's a short guy. He's my best friend, so he's not that short, but he thinks he's 6'5", but I think he's 5'11". But he always played center because he was the shorter one. But that was the backup center my senior year, so I had a couple snaps at center when he would go down or lose his helmet. But other than that, I started all 4 other positions.
So I guess the first question I want to ask you is, how do you think that has helped shape your coaching philosophy as an offensive line coach now, just being able to relate to, 4 out of the 5 positions?
Sure. I don't know how much that's helped me. It's helped me a little bit, but I think what's helped me the most is see that there's not that much of a difference between guard and tackle at a bunch of stuff. Now, you start getting into pass protection and some of that stuff and sets. Maybe that's a little bit different, obviously, but a lot of times in the run game, you can use a lot of it interchangeably. When we're doing practice, we'll have a lot of times where guards and tackles need to work because we're going against a 4-3 defense or 4-2-5. And so guards and tackles are working together, and then I put the centers and tight ends together because there's going to be a 9 technique. Tight end, pretend like the center that you're working with is your tackle. Center, pretend like the tight end you're working with is your guard who has a 3 technique. So much ways to just interchange that so we can get a lot of work out of it. So I think we use that more than anything. But I think the most I got out of football was we had 4 different offensive line coaches. So you have 4 different offensive line coaches. You really get to pick and choose. And there was 2 that I probably took the most of, but there was 2 that I took some from and saw what I definitely didn't want to do at times.
I went 5 for 5, so I got you beat on that one. I was 5 years, 5 different O-line coaches. So
did that help you out?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, same deal. Like you get 5 different experiences. Like the downfall is you never get any of that continuity going, right? Like you're always trying to learn something new, learn a little bit new terminology here and there. But you get to, like for me, as I stepped into coaching, it was like, okay, now I can think back to 5 different guys that I had relationships with, and it's like, I'm going to use this from this guy, this from that guy. I'm not going to use anything from this guy, right?
That's right.
And
that's what with me. I have Coach Shaw, who was at Minnesota, and then we had Lee Hayes, who was at one time at Baylor and then went to Tech. But I morphed the personality of Coach Hayes and some of the technique of Coach Shaw, put it together, and I kind of roll with that, and that's kind of how I teach it. But I think it's just really nice to be able to do that. And then, like you said, there's some of the coaches I tried to do almost the opposite of what they did. But you touched on something. You talk about calls. We had the worst time with calls. There was one year we were our protection, we were sliding to the left. The very next year, our protection was sliding to the right. When I got to Broken Arrow, Walz had it, scoop and slip on the backside. Well, when I was at Houston, there was 3 different times we switched. Scoop was guard tackle, slip was center guard.
Oh, man.
Next year it was the opposite. And then by my senior year, it went back to the way it first was. So when I got to Broken Arrow, I said, I can't remember ever which one was which. We're just going to call it something completely new.
Yeah. No, I got lucky in that regard because like my first 3 years were with Coach Denver Johnson, who's obviously an offensive line guy. And so when I know Walz is giving the thumbs up, he knows Denver. You worked for him for a couple years. Yeah. So he was my head guy, and we'd bring new coaches in, and he would just be like, hey, this is how we're doing it. And so that may have contributed to the fact that those guys up and left, after a year or two. I have no idea. But back then I didn't know any different. But so there was a little bit of continuity there between just like the calls. But you still got to build that relationship, which is tough,
sure.
Over just that short amount of time. So
linebacker shall always overrun. That's Walz's favorite Denver quote.
I used to have a whole book of his quotes, like in a notebook, and I lost that notebook. That's still one of the biggest regrets I have in my life.
He's got a lot of good one-liners.
Oh my goodness! Some of the best ones ever.
Line coach, the best ones have some great one-liners.
Well, and I think that's another unique thing about this deal that you guys have started with Run the Power is you both have coached multiple positions, on the field, right? And so I know you, Brady, especially have been all over the place, offensively and defensively, and but you kind of both have grounded roots in offensive line play, and so that I think how has that kind of helped shape the way this whole thing kicked off and started?
I think, number one, I think if you're going to be the kind of coordinator or head coach that you want to be, you got to be able to speak the language of the big guys. I think you got to understand the play of both lines, to be perfectly honest, because, again, games are going to be won or lost there. And I think it carries a lot of credibility with those kids if you can coach those things. But as far as the podcast being concerned, honestly, we didn't think there was one out there. No one wanted to talk about offensive line play. And I know the guys have kind of said LaCharles Bentley's kind of brought back a renaissance of that stuff. I truly believe it. Offensive line guys are athletes. And then, honestly, I think the fraternity of offensive line coaches is second to none. Those are the guys that give you the shirt off their back. They let you stay in their house if you were on the road recruiting. Those guys are just some of the most giving, nice, selfless people that you find. And those are the kind of guys that we generally love talking to. They're the salt of the earth people. And I think Coach Harper would agree with me.
Yeah, it's something that we've talked about a lot of times is that, like, for whatever reason, if you were to ever meet an offensive lineman and you were an offensive line coach or an offensive line player at one time, for some reason, you're just going to mix with those guys. And almost 90% of the time, you're going to be good friends with those guys from day one. Right. Even if you didn't know they were offensive line guys. It's just something about the personality of those guys that when you meet someone else like that, it clicks pretty easily. And that's what has been the fun part of it. And we both do know offensive line. And obviously, as Brady nicely put, I didn't know anything about running power at Houston. So all of my, I think we go to Broken Arrow and we're 21, 22, 12. And Coach Alexander, who's a 10-year NFL veteran and knows everything about every run scheme there is saying, well, what'd you guys listen for as far as formations and different stuff? I was like, Coach A, we didn't have formations. I don't know. The receivers get lined up. We always had only 5 on the line of scrimmage. We just see what front they were in. So all of that was just way different. So I really cut my teeth with everything I learned as far as gap scheme from Walz and from Coach Alexander. And so it's been cool because we are kind of on the same page. We get to talk like that. And we've had a lot of time where, as a young coach, all I wanted to do was be, the best. Obviously, everyone wants to be the best, so that's what I wanted. So I would, obviously go into the off season, and when all the other coaches would leave, Brady didn't have his wife wasn't there. She was in Iowa, and so he didn't have much to do. He'd be staying up. Everyone else would leave, and so I'd just hang out until he'd finally talk to me. So
it was hilarious because early on I didn't know Harper at all. I knew he was going to be good because he was always there and he loved to work hard, but he'd just kind of be sitting off to the side and you kind of tell you almost kind of be getting like the rock going. You kind of just be sitting there and then be like, "Hey, Harp, you want to talk some ball?" Yeah. Actually, I had a few of these questions, and got like a list of questions right there, and he wants you to just start drawing them up. It's like, all right, man, let's go. What do you want to talk about first? So that always, I just loved. So, I mean, again, you talk about our podcast. It always brings me back to those early days where it was me, Harp, Dave, just sitting in the office, shooting the bull, getting up on the whiteboard, teaching the basics of offensive line, teaching the basics of schemes, and then not only that, I mean, just getting to know each other. Yeah, and that's kind of the vibe we try to have with our podcast, and a lot of guys have said that's kind of how they feel.
Yeah,
and that's another thing with having a head coach that played in the NFL for 10 years and had his own offensive line at another big school and won state championship with him is, when I came in and he hired me, he said, this is going to be tough because it's kind of my baby, but I've got to say, if anyone has that ability to get to go coach for somebody like that, take the chance. Do it right now because you can just learn just an unbelievable amount from those guys. And I can be, I get first hour plan, so I'm up there and Coach A's in there drinking a coffee, and I can say, "Hey, Coach A, I saw something in the NFL yesterday, and it looked like they were blocking it like this. How would you do it? Or have you ever done it where you split the three or whatever it is?" And almost everything he's done or seen at one point. And so just unbelievable the things you can learn from that. So if you're willing to get out of your comfort zone a little bit and let those guys take charge, in meetings at times at your first year, and you can put your pride to the side and humble yourself, you can learn an unbelievable amount from those guys. And so I've got really lucky with him and then also with Walz.
Yeah. Well, Mario is obviously a little bit of the outlier here, right? Not a former offensive lineman, hadn't coached the offensive line, but Mario played running back, and so obviously he's got a special relationship with the offensive line.
I was going to say they're the honorary offensive line members in my book.
Yeah, so I wanted to give Mario a chance. Just what does the offensive line mean to you? I mean, being not necessarily in the room all the time, but obviously being associated and being involved with the offense as a whole. Just kind of talk a little bit about, that kind of what Brady was talking about with understanding line play and how that affects, your offensive philosophy.
Yeah, no doubt. I think you have to, especially if you aspire to be a coordinator, you better have a strong understanding of the run game and the offensive line play in terms of how they block run schemes and how they're going to protect. And the crazy thing is, obviously, as long, I haven't been in business that long, but I've had the opportunity to meet a ton of coaches, and I met some coordinators that just have no understanding of the offensive line game, and I just don't know how to get it done. I've been a former running back, and I played for Lee Hayes my senior year at Baylor.
Really?
There you go.
Yeah, so I mean, he's a great dude. I learned a lot of ball from him. Sure. Didn't run the ball a whole bunch. Last in the country in rushing that year, and
they say he's calmed down. They say he's calmed down quite a bit, so that might make you feel better. He didn't with me, but apparently after me at Texas Tech, he calmed down a lot.
I don't believe that one.
I don't either.
Yeah, but no, he was awesome. He actually got me really into the kind of air raid version that he ran. And but anyways, and actually just in terms of offensive line, I learned a lot at that point in time because that scheme in terms of blocking was very, very easy. And so that's when I really began to understand it from a running back standpoint. And then I've always just taken great value. And even if I coach receivers, I want to know how they were going to block the power versus, four eyes on a hard front or something like that. I wanted to know exactly how everything was going because, like I said, I wanted to aspire to be a coordinator at some point in time. And I just knew how vital that was and the struggles that come when you don't necessarily understand that because you end up leaning very heavily on your offensive line coach, which is not a problem. But at the same time, you got to know what's going on in that box as a coordinator.
Well, and you mentioned, too, you've worked for guys that, don't know anything about offensive line play, but then we worked with a guy who was a former O-line coach and then a coordinator in Steve Farmer. And I think for me personally, I mean, I played for him he was one of my 5 that I played for and then had the opportunity to GA for him and work with him for a couple of years. And just, his ability to be a coordinator while coaching the offensive line was incredible to me because there's so much that you have to do as a line coach, right? And then all of a sudden you add on the responsibility of being a coordinator on top of that. It's unbelievable. And I have utmost respect for guys who are able to do that, because you're coaching 5 guys on the field, plus you're coaching the other 6 because you're the coordinator too. And so I think personally, I learned a lot from him, just how to balance that and be successful.
Well, you talk a little bit about, the guys that don't know anything about offensive line, which to me, it's fine at first. If you're a young coach, you don't know anything about offensive line, and I've been around 2 different types of guys. I've been around the wide receiver skill guys that could care less. They don't care. Right. I know we're doing something with the run game, whatever, you guys figure it out. And then I've been with the ones that, truly want to know. They keep me after practice or whatever and say in the off season, hey, why do you block power like this? Why do you guys on pin and pull against this and this and this? If they don't know it now, they want to know it. And I think that's a big point, is just guys that want to know it. And again, it comes back to, I think, being humbled enough to know they don't know, but they need to know it, instead of just saying, I don't know, you guys just get it blocked. Those guys they don't seem to have the best answers, in my opinion. And so it's nice when you got a guy that truly cares and wants to know more football.
There's no doubt. My last year coaching ball was 2 years ago. I was at Davidson College and the offensive line coach. He was the coordinator the year after I left. But Matt Applebaum, he's currently at Townsend, I think, coaching O-line. And man, I tell you what, me and him would kind of after everything was done, or if we ran to go grab lunch, we'd just sit down and I'll school him up on the pass game and, what steps I was teaching the back. And he would school me up on, how we were going to protect versus this front or this, that, or the other. And man, it was awesome, because it was a guy that was hungry to get outside the offensive line. I was hungry to get inside the offensive line. And I mean, it was no surprise when they announced him the coordinator the next year, because he kind of knew what everybody was doing. I felt like I was starting to get it at the same point. And that's just, like you said, you got to always be willing to grow in this business. And it's the ones that, at some point in time, they think they know it all, or they don't want to know a certain section of them. Those are ones that are going to end up getting stunted a little bit in their growth.
Well, that's what I was saying. Even opposite, I think, of skill guys knowing the offensive line. I think if you're going to be an offensive line coordinator, you got to know even what the quarterback's supposed to be doing. Absolutely. Because I've seen some really good coaches say, "Oh, power's not working because the quarterback's pushing the running back off of his line." Right. And something that you're not normally used to, which is a lot of stuff that I got to get better at being a young coach. But those little things, or maybe the pause step by the running back, or whatever it is, little things that you don't normally see. That, or I was at Houston one year and we decided to do the backpedal pass sets, but we had a quarterback that wasn't being taught to take his 5 drops even out of the gun. And so now everything's in his face and you're getting bull rushed. And so protection wasn't good that year. And it was because quarterback coach and the line coach didn't see it together and get the quarterbacks taking the drops that they should for that pass protection. So the really good ones understand, like you said, Coach, they understand just so much of the game.
Right.
Well, and I was going to say too, it's hard, in the heat of things, right? To you're an O-line coach or whatever, and you're I'm worried about blocking this 3 technique, right? This 3 technique is blowing us up in power. I don't want to worry about what the running back's doing or the quarterback's footwork, right? But right. I think that the point you touched on there is being willing to learn in those times when it's not the heat of the moment, right? The off season, Sunday when you're watching film of the game, right? Hey, why are we doing this? Why is this guy taking this step? And trying to understand everything as a whole. And I think that's what you guys do a great job of with the podcast and the blog and all that stuff, is just putting information out there for coaches who want to learn. And that's, I think, the guys that have been in the profession for a long time, those are the successful ones, the guys who are willing to learn and want to learn more and more and more.
There's no doubt. And that's what, hopefully Walz will touch on a little bit more. But, we get messages, as I'm sure you guys do all the time, just asking questions. I had one just today, a direct message on Twitter, and a guy said, I'm a sophomore in college and I want to become a coach, and I can't wait in 2 years when I graduate, but what should I be doing right now? And so that's the cool thing, that you get to see these kids, or even some of these older guys, that it's probably more impressive with some of the older coaches because they're willing to get out of their bubble a little bit and learn. And so I've gotten a lot of those messages. Now I think Walz can speak on it. I think he's gotten a lot more than I have, but it's been cool from some of the older coaches asking me, because I've got some of the, newer stuff, or whatever you want to call it. So, those guys that are still, again, humble enough, that have won state championships, but want to know, hey, what are you guys doing here? Take it or leave it. Maybe they don't like it, but they're at least trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
I like the aspect. I mean, we have enough connections where we get to go to some really cool places. Um, not a lot of people got to go in depth at University of Nebraska this year. I mean, I'm sure everybody was asking Scott Frost and all those guys to get access to the program. Well, I'm lucky enough to work with a guy that actually coached with him at Northern Iowa, so we got in there. I think being able to bring those tidbits to coaches that don't have that access, I got buddies that coach in Alaska. It's going to be hard for them to go to a place and learn some of these things. So I think, Harper having these ideas, being able to videotape, video podcast, talk about these things, share some of that information. Obviously not the innermost secrets, but at least letting these guys know, hey, maybe there's a better way for you guys to be doing this. Maybe there's a better way for you guys to learn other than just going to a Glazier clinic or going to one clinic. And that's no knock on Glazier. I just think, you can get a little bit more in-depth information going to some of these places. And that's the kind of questions that these guys really ask, because they're like, man, I don't have that opportunity. Can you shed some light on this? Can you shed some light on that? And we try to do the best job that we can with that.
Yeah, and inside the headset, we, kind of hearing you say that, I think it's awesome that you're willing to, like you said, pay it forward to these guys that want to learn, and utilizing your access, to help these coaches grow. And inside the headset, it's not always X's and O's with us. Obviously, if you listen to the podcast, you kind of know it. I mean, we're going to talk to. We did a podcast here the other night. It'll come out probably in June or something like that. We did it with a coach's wife. We're hitting all these different aspects, and Street Coach Walz, I'm sure you probably could be a feature on that podcast as much as you move around and some of the things that you deal with in your relationship. It's just so many pieces that makes a great coach. Even past the X's and O's, even past some of the stuff that happens at the office, man. So we try to hit all that stuff, and it's awesome that you guys are willing to pour into other coaches, though.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. Just especially when you start talking like philosophy, right? And just coaching ideas and how do you connect with your kids and those type of things. Like those guys out there, everybody's willing to share that stuff, right? And you really try to nail down with some of the guys who have had success and some of the relationships you've been able to build. And so like, firsthand, like I know that Coach David Cutcliffe has a ton of knowledge that we need to try to get from him, and so we try to, do that and talk with those coaches. And that's the one thing we found is just being able to, not necessarily talk specific X's and O's all the time. Like you said, like getting down into like the trade secrets and giving too much information away. I don't ever think that really comes up, but then especially when you start talking like philosophy and stuff like that, those guys are like, oh, we'll tell you all kinds of stuff. That honestly, my favorite interview we've done so far has been with Coach Bronco Mendenhall, because that guy he knows so much stuff about philosophy and how to connect with his players and coaches, and I don't think a lot of people know a lot about Coach Mendenhall. Like he's kind of flown under the radar a little bit in terms of being at BYU for so long, now being at Virginia. It's not like you can just Google, Bronco Mendenhall and find a million videos of him. And
well, the internet's like illegal in Provo or something, isn't it?
That's probably true. Yeah, they probably don't spend a lot of time on the internet in Provo. But no, just like he was awesome, and he just shared all this great knowledge. He's very well read. He's very well spoken, and it's like, we got done talking to him. I was like, Coach, like we're gonna have to call you again in a couple months, like because there's so many things we didn't talk about. Like he surfs, he rides a motorcycle to work on the week. Like he just all kinds of cool stuff. And it's just those are the kind of things that I think we've been able to kind of touch on with Inside the Headset that we find really, really unique, and hopefully our listeners like that stuff too.
Sounds like Dos Equis got the wrong guy.
There's no doubt.
There is no doubt that. I mean, most people would probably think it'd be like a Mike Leach or Gundy or something like that. Man, it is Bronco Mendenhall. He's a different character, man.
And we get to play at BYU one year, and it's a different place. You go up there and everyone's shaking your. They've got I don't know what they're called, but a bunch of people, the married couples that are all outside right at the gate, and as you come in, they're all shaking your hand. Good luck in the game today. Good, and then head coach and his wife are right there, and good luck in the game. Welcome to Provo. It's really, really weird. Really weird coming from some of those stadiums you go to.
You go into that locker room, the visiting locker room, and they give you a toiletry bag like here's like some shampoo for after the game, and
that's right.
Here's a bar of soap, and I took that because I've spent 1 year at Utah State, and we went down there and played. They play every year, but we were at their place, and I took that toiletry bag. I was like, this is awesome. There's like a little note in there, like, thanks for coming today. Like, we appreciate it. Like, this is weird, but like, I'm going to take this with me. Because,
you were a take it with you guy? I would have chastised all my teammates. I took it and slammed it in the trash.
I want to go out and buy those little travel sizes of all that stuff. Like, that stuff's expensive.
On the way to the airport, I was like, man, I could really use some free deodorant right now. Didn't help us win. We lost the game, and now I don't have deodorant. Now I'm the idiot.
Okay, so let me, Walz, I'm going to ask you this because you obviously have coached for a while now, and but you're currently coaching wide receivers. Is that right?
I am.
Okay, so talk a little bit about just stepping away from the O-line, because obviously as an O-line coach you have a huge effect on the game, right? Because that's you're coaching 5 dudes that can have a really big outcome on every single play. I would argue outside of the quarterback, right, you probably have the most effect on the game itself. And so stepping away from that and coaching the wide receivers, how were you able to make that transition work for you?
Well, I did it in 2013. I coached the O-line at Jenks. We won the state title, went undefeated. And then I did it my first year at Broken Arrow in 2014. And then 2015, I kind of had to step away from the O-line because we lost a couple of our skill coaches. So I went to quarterbacks after that. And then Harper took over coaching the offensive line. So honestly, I kind of had a taste of it before that. Okay. Stepping away from the offensive line, I think it really helps you because it gives you a little bit more of that perspective to teach some of the unselfishness to the wideouts. Honestly, some of the first stories I tell my wide receivers is, when you guys are selfish and you guys are about yourself and you guys are in the huddle complaining about not getting the ball, those guys hate you. And I'm not like, it's not that they don't like you, they hate you. All right. And they talk bad about you. And I said, it creates an instant division on the team. So right. I've always tried to kind of tell Harper too, and I tell a lot of people like this, if you get those guys to buy in and not be me guys and not be cancerous guys, all of a sudden I see your offense just taking off. And it's the same thing on your team. Where now at least, offensive linemen can notice it, like, wow, that guy blocks downfield. I like that guy. Or, man, that guy blocks safeties. Our powers look a lot better when the wide receiver blocks safeties. So I think bringing that mentality to those guys and then just letting them know that, hey, there's plenty of guys on this team that are unselfish. You need to be that way. All right, you're dependent upon 10 other guys to get you the football. I think just being able to step away and do that. Now, coaching the prima donnas and coaching the skinny guys and the guys that wear the flashy stuff, it's hard. But at the same time, you try not to squelch all that, because I think you still got to have confident guys and you got to have happy guys. But being able to set that tone from having an offensive line background and a coordinator background, I think really, really helps when dealing with those guys. And it's fun.
I coached wide receivers for about 6 years in my career. And, Mike mentioned we worked with a guy, Coach Farmer, and he was an awesome guy. I looked up to him as a kind of a mentor. And I mentioned Coach Applebaum's offensive line coach at another place I was at. And those guys could, give some tough love to those offensive line. You get out on their practice field, and every line I've ever seen has kind of been coached with that tough love mentality. Like, they take care of them in the meeting room and, give them treats and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time on the field, it's tough love. And, coaching the wide receivers, that was the one thing. You had your 2 guys or 3 guys maybe you can kind of be rough on, just depending on their coaching, how they take coaching. But it is different. I mean, you have to be delicate with those guys, man, because you jump on them too hard, they'll shut it down. Jump on them too hard, they'll all of a sudden start dropping balls or all that kind of stuff. And so it is unique. And I can't even imagine. Like, I coach receivers long enough to where I do know those personalities pretty well. I can't even imagine coming from that tough love world that you guys and then trying to soften it up just a little bit.
It's it's all fun. I mean, I think once you build that relationship with them, like any other position, I think
Right.
once they know you have their best interests in heart, and that you're going to make them be good. I mean, that's where I always try to start with any kid. Like, hey, at the end of the day, you want to be good, don't you? Yeah, I want to be good. I want to look good on film. I want people to know my name. I want my parents to see me, be successful. I think once I tell them, hey, that's what I want. If you're successful, I'm successful. I want you to look really, really good. And once you get that relationship with them, it makes those things really, really easy. And then they know when I jump on them, they did something wrong.
Right.
But then the times when they do something really, really well, I'm the first guy there congratulating them, and I'm jumping up and I'm hip bumping. I mean, I think that's where a lot of coaches miss the boat. It's like, hey, great 80-yard touchdown, but you should have turned outside. You should have maybe tucked that ball a little bit better. It's like, dude, you just had a stiff arm, hurdle the guy, went 80. I'm going to get jacked up. I'm not going to critique you on that.
No doubt.
That one just bothers me a lot. Like a guy pancakes a guy, or you kill a guy in a double team. Yeah, but you guys didn't get the linebacker. Like, okay, coach, whatever. I'm not going to listen to you anymore.
Yeah.
Get jacked up with your kids, man. That's why we played the game. It's okay.
Absolutely. You can kind of live vicariously through them on some of those situations. I'll never forget my second year coaching. It was my second year. We were playing Illinois Wesleyan late in the year. I was at North Central College, and we had put in like a different version of trap that week. We were a big trap team. Love trap. Are we sponsored by Monster Energy too?
We're trying to get there.
Okay.
Yep.
There you go. We were a big trap team, and I loved running it. We ran it to the 3, to the 5, every which way, and we put in a new version against the look they had shown us. And I remember the second play of the game, we spring like a 40-yard touchdown, right? And it's just to the house, and I'm jacked up. Like you said, like hip bumping guys. It's great. We come off to the sideline. We're like, okay, 7-0, right? Let's compose ourselves here a little bit, because that was a big game for us. And we go back out there and we call the play again. They show the same look, and it was like the fourth play of the game. We sprung like a 70-yard run for a touchdown, and it was coming right in front of me on the sideline. I still got the video of it, but I'm just like on the sideline, sprinting next to the running back, like fist pumping in the air. And this is funny, like a week ago, I get a text message from one of my kids that is now coaching the offensive line at North Central College, who played for me that year. And he sends me that video clip. He was watching like old tape, and he's like, do you remember this? I was like, I will never forget that. Like, that was awesome. And it was just like one of those moments where we'd put in all that work that week, and all of a sudden, like, yeah, I'm going to get excited on a 70-yard touchdown run. Who doesn't get excited on 70-yard touchdown runs, especially when it's trap? Like,
that's right. Yeah.
To go for 70. So I totally, like, just hearing you guys talk about like the fact that that's important is I think a lot of coaches out there need to understand that. Get excited with your kids. Like, it's, they feed off of that energy.
Yeah, no.
I'd say I believe 150% of what you just said. I mean, it just gets old if a kid just thinks you're a robot when all you do is just constantly critique,
Yeah.
teach, critique. Show them the human side. Have some fun with them.
Well, that's the other big one I think in film too is and Walz has touched on that. It's having that balance of how much do you try to make a kid better, and how much do you let some of it be wrong until he's got the other stuff fixed. Like if you're working on your second step and you've harped on it, 3 days in a row, fourth day you see a play and he's got a great second step, but his hand's out of place. Do you go, that's exactly what I wanted on the second step and end it? Or do you say, hey, good second step, but also your hand's not in the right position? It's finding that good balance of let's just be excited that he got this done. Let's wrap it to where it's perfect. Now we're done with this. Now what's the next important thing? And that's kind of what's difficult at times is finding maybe a kid's got 12 different things that he's not very good at because he's a high school sophomore. What's the one, maybe two things that he needs to get better at? Okay, let's not care that everything else is awful. Let's get really good at these two, or at least decent. Now let's find another one or two things, and start harping on that and not get so caught up with the kid doing 12 things wrong. Let's find one thing. Then when he gets it right, let's celebrate it. Let's let him be good at it for a few days or weeks and then move him on to the next point. And it's always a tough balancing act, I think, because as a coach, you always want to see the perfection, especially in practice, right? Yeah. But as one of my coaches said from Minnesota, he said, if you get what you you emphasize too much, you get nothing. So there's always a balance in that, and that's what I try to do. And something that I learned from Walz as well is being able to prioritize and then stay with those priorities.
Yeah. Let's do this. I know we've been going for a little bit here. You guys are used to going for like 4 hours, so we're gonna keep you a little bit shorter tonight because our Inside the Headset podcast tends to run a little bit shorter. So, but Mario drew up a play for me today, a version of Power that was pretty sweet, and I got to take advantage of that whiteboard back there. So, Mario, would you want to draw that up real quick so we can look at it?
The version of Power or the
yeah. Well, I guess we changed it to Zone, didn't we? Let's draw up the Zone version.
Oh.
I know. I'm sorry. Well, Mario and we're going to start a RPO podcast where we talk Power and pass games. So, but while he's drawing this up, because I think this is a really cool play, I want to ask you, Walz. You're a big extreme ownership guy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Big Jocko fan, and myself and our executive producer, Alec Finch here, is a huge Jocko fan. And so I want to ask you, extreme ownership, what does that mean to you? And then how do you imply that as a football coach?
Well, first things first, Jocko turned down doing Run the Power podcast, so we were disappointed about that. But we knew it was a pipe dream to begin with. He's only got one of the top 5 podcasts in the world. So
yeah.
Hey, shoot,
baby. That's one of our other.
The fact that you got him to respond is great. So we're still, Alec and I are working on trying to get him to speak at the convention this year. So
which I think is a fantastic idea. By the way,
we're not promising anything. Hopefully he hears this, and this will spark his interest.
That'd be, if you guys get that done, I will be there. But as far as extreme ownership, to me, that the whole first chapter of that book is really all you need to know. I mean, the rest of it's fantastic, but if you're able to just take ownership or take the blame or take the rap for anything that happens, and you're able to put your ego aside. So when the offense isn't performing the way that it should be, it's my fault. And I can't blame anybody else. I shouldn't point the thumb right here at me. I need to get this fixed. And all of a sudden, that trickles down to everyone within that organization. So if I would say that in a staff meeting, Coach Harper would sit there and he'd be like, you know what? That's cool that Coach Walz said that, but that's BS because you know what? My offensive line needs to play better, right? And the other guys in there would be saying the same thing, and they all kind of just begin to take ownership of their small piece of that puzzle. So to me, I think when you're the leader and you set that tone and the kids hear that, all of a sudden they say the same thing. No, Coach, I missed my block on that play. So I just think you being able to admit, put your ego aside and say, you know what, when things aren't going well, it's my fault. When things are going well, you guys are all doing a great job. To me, that's just the whole gist of it.
Well, and I think the key there too is it has to be genuine, and that's the thing that I see a lot of people will talk about extreme ownership. They'll tweet about it, all that stuff. It's a great concept, right? Until it becomes hard to do, right? And it's a real world situation, and you're sitting in that staff meeting, and it is your responsibility, and you have to raise your hand and say it's on me. But at the same time, like you can't be the guy that's sitting there going, yeah, it's my fault. Like I should do a better job of getting you guys prepared because, it's on me. Like it's my job to do that, right? Obviously, that does not work. Everybody sees right through that. So I think everything you said is right, but I want people to understand that you have to be genuine when you do that.
Yeah, it's that whole thing. I mean, I try to say, okay, so guys, it's my bad. We're not doing this. We're not doing this correctly. Here's how we are going to fix it.
Right. Yep.
So having that solution right away instead of saying all this, blah, 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 and then I use the word but.
Yeah.
So you say the word but, you just erased everything you just said.
Right.
Hey, I take ownership of this, but you guys, instantly it goes into your next mode of blame and complain. So
it's my fault because I didn't get you guys ready, right? It's my fault because I didn't prepare you to do this. That's
the sarcastic ownership.
That is sarcastic ownership, which you could probably write a book on sarcastic ownership, but it wouldn't.
I don't know who'd buy it, but I'd write it.
No, absolutely. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this play. I know you guys are going to cringe a little bit because this has got an RPO aspect to it, but
dude, I'm about it. I'm about it.
So let's
Football's evolving.
Let me preface this just a little bit, man. I've been a guy since I was probably in high school that always drew plays. Always been that guy sitting meetings. Mike can attest.
I will vouch for him. We sit in these staff meetings here at the AFCA, and I look over and Mario's drawing up ball plays, and I'm like, when are you going to use that? And he's like, I'm not going to, but I'm drawing it.
He's got a stack of napkins every time.
Yeah, no doubt. And honestly, man, I've taking the time out of coaching. I miss it like crazy. I tell somebody that every day, but I'm taking the time out to just watch a lot of film, watch a lot of people play ball, do a lot, do some things like that. And man, I've been falling in love with some stuff. I kind of grew up under this tree with Coach Barry, who's our executive director here. Fell in love with empty. We kind of were the pioneers per se of two quarterback system. We did that. And it wasn't a wrinkle. It wasn't a special play. It was part of our offense. We called it, often. And so I tend to think outside the box just a little bit with some stuff. But here lately, I've been falling in love with a new formation, which is not empty, which is very surprising if you saw any of my drawings. But getting into some two-back with shotgun, and I really fell in love with taking your X and putting them over and creating some unbalanced formations. Mm-hmm. And in this particular deal, I kind of fell in love with this because you got your best of both worlds. You got your best of all worlds because you got two backs. Where they're running the ball to right now. You know what I'm saying? And then you got your tight end attached, which is always good. Like you said, I know you're a run the power guy, so you got an opportunity to run the power there if you want to. And you got your two receivers who are both eligible, and you can always add some RPO. So this little thing I was messing with here, I was basically saying, you run a lot of people call it bash. Run outside zone to the front side, read the backside in. The quarterback can run the outside zone to the front side, and allowing the two backs to run option off of. And I saw Baylor do this in probably 2011 versus Washington in a bowl game, and I thought it was pretty cool. So I'd always kind of would draw it up, and I thought that was pretty cool. And I said, hey, what else could I do with this? Well, after he gets done reading with that, he can throw an RPO. Well, what if they start covering RPO? Well, then he can go run the outside zone. So I was just messing around with that, and I showed Mike, and he started chuckling. We started having some fun with the formation a little bit.
Yeah, the original version he showed me actually had power drawn up to it. And I said, well, how are you going to read the backside in? Because on power, like your backside tackle's going to usually like funnel hinge, right? And try to protect the backside. And I was like, well, let's just run outside zone. Now you can read the backside in and pitch off the corner. So I took the power aspect out of this one, but that was my
way to go, Cross.
Yeah. I know, right? Yeah.
I like it. I mean, honestly, you've seen some of the stuff, and it's something that we had kind of jacked a little bit from UCF. I like the action you got there when you're running. It's triple, right? Basically,
yeah.
When you run, or I should say, probably speed option.
Yeah, it's a little more speed option.
So if I'm handing off, I'm running speed option to the boundary, and then another way you could block it, which is what Nebraska and UCF are doing, is they're just running sprint out protection to the right side.
Okay.
So if the quarterback doesn't give it, he's running sprint out, and you're running whatever concept you want to the field. Yeah. So basically you're running, it's either going to be speed option to the left or it's going to be sprint out to the right.
Right.
And they actually murdered some people with that in actually 2x2 spread looks. Auburn didn't have an answer for it. I was asking Coach Shenander when we were there. He's like, I don't know what the hell that is. I don't know what to tell my guys. Right. So he says it really messes with a lot of their linebackers. And here'd be the other thing I was thinking as soon as you were drawing it up to, what an awesome 2-point play.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
being able to just kind of count numbers if you're going to overplay my receiver side, okay, let's run speed option to the boundary. You can overplay my speed option, cool, I have a sprint out. It kind of gives you the best of both worlds because both those plays are good in 2-point situations. Right. I like it, man. It's good stuff.
What hash you running this off of on the 2-point play?
If it's me?
Yeah.
If it's me, I'd be running it on, I would say left middle. So right on the left goalpost, yeah.
Sure. That's what I was going to say right there, too. That's a good call.
Well, we couldn't do a video podcast without drawing up at least one play. Even though it is not power, we had to draw one play up. So, well, let's close out here a little bit, and let's give you guys a chance to talk about where people can find Run the Power. I know you got some sponsors you need to throw in there, and then we can kind of close it up with the inside the headset stuff.
Perfect. Yeah, you can find us on runthepower.com. We got really creative with that name, so runthepower.com. We're on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play and anywhere you want to find a podcast, you can find it there. SoundCloud's where we host it all, so you can find it all there. We've also got the website, like we said. You can buy some Run the Power shirts if you're feeling like it. And yep, big thanks to our sponsors.
Yeah, I need.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's nice. We got a couple different ones. We just, like I said, got the 50,000 downloads, so we cut down the prices of it. And we've also got next week, which won't be next week when this is aired, but we were having some sponsors.
Podcasting 101. Don't date yourself.
That's exactly right. Hey, I'm telling you, we're as unprofessional as it gets. But those are all cut down because of the 50,000 downloads we have. So we're excited about that. And yeah, we have Team Attack Academy, which has been with us forever. A business we kind of got in, and we love it. We think it's does great for players, and we use it with my offensive line, and it's been unbelievable. Coach Walz' whole team uses it. We got them. We've got Sky Coach. We've got Powerlift. Obviously, we get JR Conrad. Powerlift, just great dudes. We talk to them all the time. Just even if don't let them know it, but even if they weren't a sponsor, they'd be someone we just want to be a part of. Those guys. I mean, they're just good people. It's unreal when you can get with good people. I'm glad we are getting paid for them to be our sponsor, but they're the real deal. We're going to be with them probably no matter what. Don't let that slip out there. And then we've also got Sideline Power now. So Sideline Power, and then audible.com, which is rtpbook.com is the way we get money from it. But it's like Netflix kind of for audio books. And you enjoy podcasts. I love podcasts. I listen to the Joe Rogan podcast all the time. So I enjoy podcasts, and so I also enjoy audio books. It's easier than reading. Obviously, we're all coaches. You got no time to read, so it's been one of the most informative things other than podcasts for me, because while I work out in the morning, you can listen to all that stuff. So obviously all that stuff, but it's been great. We've had a lot of fun.
Walz, give us your Twitter handle and all that stuff. So when guys got questions for you, they can. I know you're like a social media celebrity, but
I don't know about that. I think a lot of them probably just get sick and tired of listening to me complain about the multiple sports debate and all that crap.
You probably got a lot of bots that are following you. So it's.
I think there's a lot of them. I don't think I have that many fake followers, but we'll see. Mine's is at Coach Brady. I think it's at Coach Brady Walz would be my Twitter handle, and then you can follow us at Run the Power. Makes it real easier. And I think it's for Harper. It's at Harper_coach. Is that right?
Sure.
So I think
we'll link to all that stuff. We'll link to all that stuff here. So
but no, seriously, I mean, guys, don't be scared to contact me. I get back to everybody. I'll message anybody. It doesn't matter. I got guys asking questions all over the place. I'll do my best to give you an educated guess, or at least Google an answer for you.
When we started running down this road of doing this with you guys, I think I Twitter messaged you, and I pulled my Twitter messages up, and the last conversation we had was like 2 years ago, and you were DMing me about, hey, can you send me some film on I think it was like Alabama's defense or something like that, or something. I was like, I think I was at ULM at the time, so I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I got some of this stuff. So
it was Bama's offense. I remember it because I still watch it.
Yeah,
Harper and I were just talking about that. I'm like, yeah, Cross will be on. He's like, who's Cross again? I go, well, he's the O-line GA. He's the guy that sent us the Alabama film. Oh yeah, that guy. But I'm telling you right now, you sent us that film. I wanted to watch that because of their third down package. That was always one of the things that I studied through and through. But they had some Lane Kiffin plays. We actually put 2 of their third down plays in it. Helped us on a run to the state finals at Broken Arrow. So
nice.
Cross, you had an indirect relationship with us on offense at BA, baby.
Did you win that state championship?
We didn't.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I should probably get a ring then or something.
I wish I had a ring too.
I lost my senior state championship too, so
you can have one of our silver medals that we got.
I got a silver medal too. I don't know where it's at. So, Mario, you want to plug all the AFCA stuff since you know all that stuff better than I do?
Yeah, we are AFCA. Is pretty much on Twitter, Instagram, all those social media things. We also got the Inside the Headset podcast Twitter account. You can go ahead and type in Inside the Head and then ST. It'll pull it up by the time you type that in. Myself, my personal Twitter account is at Coach Mario Price. And I don't got you down, Coach Cross. I think you got
mine's Coach Cross 70. Yeah,
I knew there was some numbers in there. I got you. All right.
So the funny story about the Inside the Head ST, we found out when we created the Twitter account, you can only have 15 characters in your name, and Inside the Headset is 16. And so we were like, oh, we're just going to create a Twitter Inside the Headset's good. We'll use that one. And then we found out that no, you need 15. And so then we had like a 4-hour debate back here in our roundtable about how do we do this the right way. So we ended up with Inside the Head ST, and hopefully people will be able to find that. So we just go to We Are AFCA and you can find it pretty easily. So it's good stuff. But well, we appreciate you guys being on with us, and anything we can ever do for you guys, just let us know. And any of your guys listeners out there, we encourage them to get involved with the AFCA. We're trying to, spread the message too, and, educate guys and do anything we can for those coaches out there to help them in their careers. So
we appreciate what you guys do, man. I like that you guys are taking the AFC, out of the dark ages. It used to just be the convention, and now you guys are getting more tech savvy, and you guys are getting after it, and making it a little bit more geared towards some of these younger coaches in the future of football. So I really appreciate what you guys do. I've been a member of AFCA for a long time, and I've had a lot of, fun memories going to the convention. So I'm excited to see what you guys do with it.
Yeah, I'm glad we're, like you said, we're taking, trying to do some new stuff, and hopefully we can continue to do that, and people enjoy it out there. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you did it too, Coach. I mean, like we've always said, me and Walz have said it for about 3 years now. ESPN kind of on the downgrade for us, not our biggest thing. A lot of non-football, non-sports stuff going on. So it's nice when you do see, the Football Coaches Association really get into talking ball and doing some of that stuff, because that's really what, as coaches, we want to go
Right.
watch. We've even talked about. We could care less to watch ESPN. Let's just go listen to a bunch of football coaches talk scheme on ESPN, but they don't do stuff like that. So it's nice to see you guys starting to get into that and rolling with that. It's something we enjoy following, and so we're really, really excited and really happy that you guys did have us on, man. It was awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. We appreciate it.
All right, fellas.